There is an invisible yet palpable threshold within each of us. Stepping over it, we encounter something that evokes not just dislike, but an almost physical repulsion. It is something that feels alien, even disgusting, when it manifests in another person. Consider that woman whose unwavering will and ambition seem excessive, almost aggressive, as if she is encroaching on someone else's inherent territory. Or that man whose vulnerability and emotional openness are perceived as weakness, as something unacceptable, a deviation from unshakable norms. Is this internal spasm, this instant urge to turn away or condemn, this whisper of the inner critic, familiar to you? This discomfort arises when someone dares to be what, by unspoken agreement, they are not supposed to be based on their gender. It's a feeling where another's freedom to be themselves suddenly threatens your own carefully constructed worldview. This is not merely a casual reaction, a fleeting irritation, or a superficial antipathy. It is an echo, a reverberation of a profound inner drama that unfolded long ago. Imagine your soul as an ancient castle where each room holds its own secret, its own treasure, its own potential. Yet some doors are tightly locked, their keys thrown into the abyss of oblivion, or even more terrifyingly, hidden beneath the foundation of others' expectations. But the qualities you so vehemently reject in others are nothing more than the ghosts of these very locked rooms. They are uninvited guests constantly knocking at the gates of your consciousness, demanding recognition, demanding liberation. They are the phantom pain from an amputated part of yourself, severed long ago under the pressure of the external world, beneath the weight of unspoken rules and gender prescriptions, out of fear of being rejected, unaccepted, or wrong. This is not a curse, a weakness, or a coincidence. It is a compass pointing to hidden gold. The one who evokes the most repulsion in you is not an enemy, but a guide to your own concealed strength, to your true power. In every burst of irritation, in every judgmental glance, lies not just negativity, but a map to your cursed treasure, to those qualities that were exiled from your personality, but which, when integrated, can unlock unprecedented horizons of your authentic power and wholeness. This is not just a mirror reflecting others' flaws. It is a mirror screaming about your own unrealized potential, about your anima or animus, trapped in a prison of stereotypes, yearning to be freed, yearning to breathe deeply and manifest in all their pristine beauty and strength. The truth lies not in the present moment of this repulsion, but in its origins, not in what you feel now, but in when and why these doors in your inner castle became locked, why these keys were lost. At what moment, at what crossroads of your life did you learn that certain facets of your soul, be it assertive ambition, deep vulnerability, the right to make mistakes, the capacity for healthy aggression, or indeed the capacity for tenderness, empathy, or intuitive understanding, were declared bad, shameful, or dangerous? When did the external world, through the words and actions of significant figures, through the invisible threads of cultural prescriptions, first draw the lines on the map of your inner exile, determining what you could and could not do based on who you are by birth, by gender? This moment, this point of origin, is crucial for understanding how these invisible prisons are formed within us. We have already touched upon that invisible threshold that separates us from our own unacceptable facets, from those qualities that like ghosts haunt us from the depths of the subconscious. But what was that moment, that unseen watershed, when these living, pulsating parts of our soul were outlawed. Recall when the whisper of the external world and then your inner voice first convinced you that ambition was only for the powerful, but not for you, if you were born under the sign of femininity. Or when you were taught that healthy aggression, the ability to assert your boundaries, was not strength, but unacceptable rudeness, especially if it came from a woman for whom the role of peacemaker was designated. Or perhaps as a man you remember the moment when the right to make mistakes, to genuine vulnerability, to tears, to deep compassion was torn from your soul by the roots. When, under the pressure of unspoken rules, you were prescribed to be an unyielding rock rather than a flowing river capable of change and emotional expression. It was in these moments, often not fully conscious, that the exile occurred. It wasn't always a loud, dramatic episode. More often, it was a series of subtle hints, disapproving glances, barely perceptible reactions from parents, teachers, and peers. These were words said in passing. Good girls don't behave like that. Boys don't cry. Be more modest. Be stronger. In these words, these unspoken expectations lay the trap of gender stereotypes, which, like invisible threads, wove a cocoon around our developing psyche. They prescribed which qualities were acceptable for women and which for men, and anything that fell outside these boundaries was automatically sent to the prison of the shadow. For a woman, her animus, her inner masculine part, including logic, assertiveness, and the capacity for action, could be distorted and driven underground if these qualities were perceived as too masculine and threatening to her femininity. Ambition, the desire to lead, directness, all of this could become shameful or dangerous, leading to loneliness or condemnation. Similarly, for a man, his anima, the inner feminine part responsible for emotionality, intuition, connection to feelings, and empathy, could be suppressed and distorted. Vulnerability, tenderness, the capacity for deep emotional connection, the right to doubt and fear, all of this could be branded as weakness, unmanly, disgraceful. As a result, these vital aspects of personality necessary for a full life and success became locked away, turning not into a source of strength, but into a source of inner struggle and self-sabotage. This is how our personal prisons were formed, built from the bricks of social prescriptions and the fear of being rejected. These exiled parts do not disappear without a trace. They continue to live within us, manifesting in our projections, in our rejection of certain qualities in others, in our inner conflict. For what we cast out of ourselves often returns to us in a distorted form, demanding attention, demanding recognition. This is not just a personal drama. It is a deep psychological mechanism that affects each of us, determining how we interact with the world and with ourselves. We have already touched upon the unseen thresholds behind which lies the phantom pain of exiled parts of the soul, those ghosts that knock at the gates of consciousness, demanding recognition. But what is the deeper mechanism of this repulsion, this distorted mirror that reflects something alien to us when it is, in fact, showing us ourselves? The universal principles of the shadow and projections permeate the very fabric of existence. They are older than any cultural prescription. Yet these prescriptions give them specific contours. At their core lies an archaic fear, a primal terror of being cast out of the tribe. Humans, as social beings, instinctively strive for belonging. And for the sake of this belonging, for acceptance, we are willing to cut off entire pieces of ourselves, declaring them unworthy wrong, or dangerous. We exile these parts of ourselves beyond the conscious mind, as if disowning them, casting them into the dark waters of the unconscious. But the energy contained within these exiled aspects does not vanish. It does not dissolve into nothingness. On the contrary, it accumulates much like the energy of an unpaid bill that demands settlement. This is an eternal debt that haunts us in the faces of those we condemn, in the traits of those who provoke irrational irritation or admiration within us. Projection is not merely a misperception. It is the psyche's desperate attempt to reclaim what was lost, but without the readiness to acknowledge it as its own. We see it in others because we cannot bear to see it in ourselves. We fear this strength, this vulnerability, this ambition, this sensuality, everything that was once declared bad or inappropriate for us. And so it appears to us from outside in another's guise, demanding attention, demanding integration. Recall the myth of Narcissus, a youth of incredible beauty who one day saw his reflection in the stream and fell madly in love with it. He did not recognize himself. He did not understand that this captivating beauty was his own. He suffered from unrequited love for an image that was himself, yet seemed separate and unattainable. So too, we, captivated or repelled by the images of others, fail to see that before us is merely a distorted echo of our own rejected self. We project our own suppressed qualities onto them and then react to these projections as if they were something alien and external. This blindness to our own shadow aspects projected outward not only creates personal drama, but also shapes the collective unconscious, carving out figures that take on flesh in our fears and aversions. And this universal dynamic, this eternal mirror of projections, sometimes takes surprisingly concrete forms, embodying itself in images that elicit our most irrational responses. We spoke of the invisible threshold beyond which physical repulsion is born, of the phantom pain of amputated parts of the soul. But what are these ghosts, these demons that we so vehemently reject in others, unaware that they are merely reflections of our own exiled self? In the labyrinth of the psyche, where shadows dance to the music of ancient prescriptions, we encounter figures that provoke irrational anger, contempt, or icy irritation within us. These are not just people. They are living embodiments of our own rejected qualities, archetypal masks onto which we project what we dare not acknowledge in ourselves. The first of these is the cold architect. She is a woman who seems heartless, driven only by bare logic and unyielding ambition. In her eyes, there is no warmth, only steely calculation. She builds empires, breaks down barriers, but every achievement of hers only intensifies our inner repulsion. Why? Because she dares to be what societal stereotypes have forbidden women for centuries: dispassionate, dominant, not needing emotional support. In her, we see a distorted reflection of our own suppressed strength, our right to power, independence, and self-sufficiency, which for women have been declared unfeminine or dangerous. She is a mirror of our unrealized ambition, our fear of being too much for the world, and thus we project onto her all our hatred for our own restrictions. Imagine Elena. From childhood, she was praised for her intelligence and determination, but when as a teenager she declared she wanted to head a major corporation, her mother sadly shook her head. "My dear, that's too hard for a woman. You should be a happy wife and mother." Elena learned to hide her ambitions behind a smile, but inwardly she burned. Years later at work, she became that iron fist in a velvet glove. ruthless in decision-making, detached from her colleagues. They whispered behind her back, calling her Ice Queen, a soulless careerist. And when they saw her impassive face during an employee's dismissal or her firm grip in negotiations, a wave of inexplicable aversion rose within them. They did not realize that this aversion was merely an echo of their own suppressed fear of being strong, being inconvenient, being unfeminine in a world where women are expected to be soft and compliant. In Elena, they hated the part of themselves they were forbidden to express. And then we have the bleeding heart. He is a man who seems too sensitive, too emotional, too vulnerable. He cries openly, speaks of his feelings without shame, seeks comfort when a real man is supposed to be stoic. In him we see weakness, hysteria, femininity, and this evokes deep contempt, sometimes bordering on disgust. Why? Because he dares to be what societal stereotypes have forbidden men for centuries: emotional, intuitive, dependent on others. In him is reflected our own suppressed need for empathy, for tenderness, for the right to weakness, which for men have been declared shameful. And he is a mirror of our unwept pain, our fear of being not manly enough. And thus we project onto him all our aggression towards our own emotional shackles. These archetypes are not merely external objects of our disapproval. They are beacons that point to deep wounds within our own psyche. Each time we feel this irrational impulse of repulsion, we stand before a door to our own subconscious, where our most valuable resources, our most authentic expressions are locked away. We reject in others what was once forcibly exiled from ourselves, what we deemed unworthy or dangerous for survival in a world full of gender prescriptions. These are not merely vices that we see. They are distorted reflections of great forces that we have forbidden ourselves. We spoke of the phantom pains of the soul, of the ghosts that haunt us in the reflections of others, but every ghost, every demon that evokes repulsion is merely a distorted whisper of an ancient, powerful force locked in the prison of the subconscious. What we have labeled a vice is, in reality, a precious resource, a right we once denied ourselves, banishing it into the shadow. Consider the cold architect, the one whose ambition and steely logic seem so alien, so relentlessly rational. Hidden within her repulsive image is not coldness, but crystalline clarity of thought, not heartlessness, but an impeccable capacity for strategic thinking. This is not a vice. It is a gift for seeing the essence of things, for building structures, for cutting through the fog of emotions to a clear goal. What valuable ability have we exiled by rejecting it? We have forbidden ourselves the right to self-sufficiency, to firm but necessary boundaries, to leadership that requires no one's approval. A woman who has exiled this part of herself deprives herself of the opportunity to be the true mistress of her destiny, to boldly declare her ambitions, to make decisions without regard for others' expectations. She loses access to her inner queen, the one who rules wisely, justly, and without hesitation. This is a prohibition on self-determination, on intellectual power, on an unwavering will capable of building empires, both external and internal. Now let's turn to the bleeding heart, the man whose vulnerability and emotional openness evoked inner resistance. Behind this vice lies not weakness, but a bottomless depth of empathy, a capacity for genuine connection, for healing compassion. This is not a vice. It is a pulsating source of intuition, tenderness, and a willingness to be painfully sincere. What was forbidden when this part was exiled into the shadow. A man who rejects his emotional shadow forbids himself the right to feel the fullness of life, both joy and sorrow, fear, and tenderness. He deprives himself of the capacity for true intimacy, for a deep understanding of others and himself. He has exiled from himself the right to vulnerability as the highest form of courage, the right to tears, to seek solace, to compassion that does not make him less of a man. And this is a prohibition on emotional freedom, on genuine human warmth, on intuitive knowledge that flows through the heart, not just through the mind. Thus, every demon is merely a distorted mirror of your own unrealized potential, your unused gift. By acknowledging these shadows, we not only accept vices, but reclaim stolen strengths, restoring our wholeness. However, the path to this restoration is not always easy, for it is often the fear of these demons that dictates our decisions, leading us down a path that seems safe but actually deprives us of true life. We spoke of ghosts, of the phantom pain of rejected qualities that glide like shadows at the periphery of our consciousness, manifesting in those who evoke irrational repulsion. But what is the cost of this blindness? What harvest does the soul reap when seized by fear? It turns away from its own exiled facets. Alas, this price is immeasurable, for it is measured in unfulfilled lives, missed opportunities, and the eternal echo of the unspoken. Consider the woman who carries within her the seeds of the cold architect, but trembling before judgment, rejects them. She sees in herself only the tenderness and compliance prescribed by her role. The fear of being called heartless, a careerist, or mannish makes her hesitate at the threshold of her own ambitions. She dares not demand a promotion, though her intellect and logic surpass many colleagues. Her projects requiring structural rigidity and decisiveness remain unfinished because she fears pushing too hard, being too much, too demanding, too direct. Her inner strength, her capacity for leadership and strategic thinking, which could build empires, remains buried under the weight of social expectations. The outcome, stagnation, financial dependence, a chronic sense of dissatisfaction, and a quiet but burning resentment towards a world that she believes does not value her true worth. She herself has deprived herself of the opportunity to manifest her wholeness, her true scale, fearing to become that demon from our past discussions. Or let's turn to the man in whom the bleeding heart lives, but who, fearing the label of weakling or whiner, locks his feelings in a prison of silence. Society taught him that masculinity is a stone. Knowing no tears, no doubts, he does not allow himself to be vulnerable, to share pain, to seek comfort. In relationships, he seems detached, for any attempt to show tenderness or empathy is perceived by him as a threat to his manliness. He is unable to support a partner in grief because he himself avoids contact with his own deep emotions. He cannot admit a mistake, for that would be tantamount to admitting weakness. The outcome: broken connections, emotional alienation, loneliness even in a crowd, and sometimes psychosomatic illnesses, for suppressed emotions always find a way out. His inner softness, depth of feeling, and capacity for true intimacy, which could create unbreakable bonds, turn into an icy wall, separating him from the world, for he dreads the prospect of becoming that demon whose weakness, in his opinion, is exposed for all to see. This fear of being like the very demons we identified as projections of our rejected qualities forces us to make decisions detrimental to our own growth and well-being. This is not just a fear. It is an ancient, archaic terror of being expelled from the tribe, of being rejected by society for being different. We voluntarily cripple ourselves, amputating entire layers of our personality just to conform to the narrow confines dictated by gender stereotypes. We convince ourselves that these qualities, aggression, vulnerability, ambition, empathy, are dangerous, harmful, shameful, but in reality we deprive ourselves of powerful resources necessary for a full, rich life. For true strength lies not in denial, but in integration, not in becoming a demon, but in reclaiming our right to the full spectrum of human expressions, purifying them of distortions and fears. This is not an invitation to become heartless or constantly weeping, but permission to be so when it is appropriate, when it is part of your authenticity. And yet, this labyrinth of self-knowledge holds not only shadows of terror and rejection. In its winding corridors, there are also shining facets that we, at times, project onto others just as desperately, depriving ourselves of their light. We have already journeyed through the labyrinths of repulsion, through the dark rooms of the soul, where amputated parts of ourself are locked away, declared vicious and dangerous. But there is another kind of shadow, a radiant, alluring one, which we project onto the pedestals of our ideals. This is the golden shadow, a constellation of unrealized talents, undiscovered abilities, and unnoticed gifts that instead of acknowledging as our own, we bestow upon others, elevating them to the status of unattainable deities. Look into the mirror of your admiration. Who are the figures whose will, depth, grace, or power fill you with awe? Perhaps it is a woman whose unyielding ambition breaks down walls, and you see in her the embodiment of strategic intellect that you feel you lack. Or a man whose vulnerable openness seems like profound wisdom and empathy, which you may have suppressed within yourself. In them, you see something that resonates with your soul, but which you do not allow yourself to embody. Gender prescriptions, like invisible threads, weave these images, dictating to us which qualities are proper for our gender and which are not, even in admiration. We learn to bow before ideal femininity, tenderness, intuition, care, but often fail to see how these qualities can also be our inner strength if we are a man forced to be strong and unemotional. Or we bow before true masculinity, strength, decisiveness, logic, without realizing that these can also be ours if we are a woman prescribed to be soft and compliant. And in this act of projection, in this silent adoration, lies a subtle yet destructive sabotage. We don't just admire, we alienate. We give away our strength, our potentials, our inner light to others, convincing ourselves that these qualities belong to them, not to us. We become passive spectators of our own unrevealed greatness, watching others live lives that could be ours if only we dared to embrace the same golden essence within ourselves. It is as if an artist, blinded by another's masterpiece, forgot about their own hands capable of creation, or as if a treasure hunter stared at others' chests, oblivious to the gold vein beneath their own feet. This projection keeps us in a state of perpetual student, never becoming the master, an eternal admirer, never becoming the deity of our own destiny. Allow yourself a deep, honest look within. Who is your idol, your object of admiration in the realm of anima or animus, in the manifestations of gender energy that you consider exemplary? What are your own talents? What unrealized abilities, what facets of your soul have you perhaps unconsciously given to this image, abandoning them yourself to conform to others' expectations or your own inner prohibitions? Answer yourself and listen to the echo of these words, for in this echo begins the path to reclamation. This is merely the beginning of a journey that leads to a new understanding of oneself, to the attainment of wholeness, where every aspect, even the most subtle, becomes a key to an inner alchemy capable of transforming not only personality, but the very fabric of reality. We have spoken of ghosts, of the phantom pain, of unaccepted facets, but the time has come not just to see them, but to reclaim what was once rejected. This is not merely an act of acceptance, but an alchemical transformation, a return of power that for years nourished illusions and external images. Every projection, be it admiration for the golden shadow or aversion to the dark one, is nothing less than a treasure map pointing to what was exiled from your inner kingdom. And in this truth lies a new philosophy capable of revolutionizing your perception of the world. The strength, energy, and potential that you once gave away, attributing to others, have not dissolved into the ether. They have merely awaited your return, sealed in capsules of rejection or false worship. To reclaim them means not just to become whole, but to regain sovereignty over your own soul, to gather the fragments of your true power. Imagine that you are not just an observer of your life, but its skilled sculptor. The first tool we will master is the conscious reclamation of projection. This is more than just intellectual understanding. It is a practice of deep feeling and courageous acknowledgement. Here's a simple but powerful exercise that will guide you into this world of inner alchemy. Step 1, the echo of response. Recall a recent situation where someone evoked a strong emotional response in you. This could be someone who captivated you immensely or someone who was unbearably irritating. Linger on this sensation as if gazing at a shimmering shadow on a wall. Allow it to simply be. Step 2, unpacking the quality. What specific quality of this person provoked such a powerful reaction? If it was the cold architect, perhaps her impartiality or ambition bothered you. If it was the bleeding heart, then his excessive, as it seemed to you, sensitivity. Name this quality as if giving a name to an ancient, forgotten deity within yourself. 3. Step 3, the mirror of stereotypes. Now delve deep into your memories and ask yourself, when and why did this quality become, not mine? Recall how gender prescriptions, societal expectations, or parental instructions shaped your attitude toward it. Were you told that good girls shouldn't be so bossy and decisive, or that real men don't cry or show weakness? How did these external voices force you to cut off this part of yourself? Feel the pain of this rejection as if removing an old, constricting bandage. Step 4, the act of reclamation. Close your eyes. Imagine this quality which you have long seen as external, slowly returning to your body, to your soul. Feel it pour into you like a stream of light or warm energy, filling the void created by the rejected facet. Accept it without judgment, as if welcoming a long-lost child home. Say to yourself aloud or silently, "This is mine. I am reclaiming the named quality. I allow it to be a part of me, enriching my inner world." Step 5, manifesting in small ways. Find a way to express this reclaimed quality in your life today, even in the most minor, safest form. If you've reclaimed ambition, allow yourself to take a small but decisive step towards a goal you've long postponed. If you've reclaimed vulnerability, allow yourself to share a genuine feeling with a trusted loved one. Start small, but do it consciously, as if taking your first breath after a long dive underwater. This is not a one-time ritual, but a journey, a daily practice that gradually dissolves the boundaries between your true self and the self others wanted you to be. With each reclaimed fragment, you don't just become better, you become more complete, more authentic. You begin to breathe with your whole essence, feeling the earth beneath your feet and the sky above your head. And when we speak of breathing fully and returning to ourselves, the question inevitably arises: how does this newfound wholeness impact our most intimate connections? For if the inner landscape changes, then external reflections cannot remain the same. How does this transformation rebuild the bridges between us and those close to us, especially in intimate relationships? And what new dimensions does it open in the dance of two whole souls?